So what do we learn from this ayah? First of all, we learn from this ayah that theft is a major sin. What's the evidence? The punishment is mentioned in the ayah. And any crime for which there is a had, that crime, that sin is kabira. It is a major sin. So theft is a major sin. And this is supported by this ayah itself and also many ahadith of the Prophet ﷺ from which we learn that this is a serious crime in our religion. The Prophet ﷺ said, there's a hadith recorded in Bukhari and Muslim, that Allah has cursed the thief who steals an egg, one egg, and thus has his hands cut off. That how lowly could a person be? That for the sake of an egg, for the sake of some money, for the sake of a nice pair of shoes which have been used by someone, for the sake of somebody's cell phone which has been used by someone, for the sake of somebody's bag, for the sake of somebody's books, what is he doing? He is sacrificing his hand. May Allah curse such a person. The Prophet ﷺ cursed the person who would do such an action. I mentioned to you earlier that theft is that which reaches the nisab. And definitely an egg is less than a quarter dinar. It is less than a quarter dinar, definitely. So, what does it mean by this hadith? What this hadith means is that a person steals one egg, and then eventually he steals something else. And then he steals something else. And eventually he has stolen so much, or he has stolen such valuable things, that as a result what happens? Eventually the punishment is carried out on him. Somebody was mentioning this to me the other day, that where they used to live before, if theft was reported at least 7 times, then this punishment was carried out. In Saudi, basically she was mentioning that when she used to live there, that if a person committed theft and that was reported at least 7 times, then the punishment of cutting off the hand would be applied. Allahu A'lam, but this is what I have heard. So what does this show? That it begins from stealing small things. One thing here, one thing there. And then a person says, let me try again. I got that through theft, let me try again. And maybe I can get this through theft. And then eventually a person develops a habit. He develops a habit which can lead to serious crimes. And if you don't stop it right there, what's going to happen? Then a person is not going to care if he's killing somebody in order to get their property. You see, this theft, what does it lead to then? Hiraba. It leads to threatening other people to get their wealth. And we have to be very careful about what our children bring home, what they have, what they use. As parents, you have the right to question your child. What is it that you have in your bag? Where did you get this money from? Where did you get that food from? Who gave you this chocolate bar? Because if you don't keep a check from the very beginning, then what's going to happen? They're not going to care if they're stealing money from your wallet or they're stealing money from the donation box of a masjid. They're not going to care about that. So, you have to start a very early age. I remember I was very young, and every day when we would come home, my mom, she would just open up our bags, every single thing, in front of us. Not even behind us, in front of us. And we just had this fear as children, even if we didn't do anything wrong, that my mom is going to check my bag. She's going to check everything in front of me. So you have the right to do that as parents. And if you do that, only then your children will become cautious about what they bring home. Do it in front of them. And if they bring something ever, make them take it back. I remember once as children, our neighbors, they had this beautiful fruit tree. And half of that tree was in our backyard. And once all of us, we went and we were like, oh, the fruit is ripe, let's have it. So we started picking the fruit and we ended up with a whole basket full of that fruit. This was an innocent crime, you can say, that it was their tree and we picked up all of the fruit basically off that small tree. We brought it home, we brought it inside and we showed it to our mom and dad and they're like, take it. Take it and give it to the neighbors. Take it and give it to the neighbors. And when we did that, we were literally crying, like, we can't do that. We didn't know this was theft. We had no idea. But it made us so careful since then that we wouldn't even dare touch, even look at other people's things. It belonged to somebody else. Why even look at it? Why? And sometimes children, they just stare at other people's stuff and they admire it so much. Why even look at other people's things? It doesn't belong to you. Don't even look at it twice. So this has to be instilled from the very beginning, from a very early age. That keep a close check on your children from the start. Watch every single action that they're doing from the start. And then, if you don't do that, what's going to happen? They're going to develop this habit of theft and they won't even realize if it's a big deal or if it's such a huge crime in our religion. The Prophet ﷺ said, there's a hadith mentioned in Bukhari and Muslim, that the thief does not steal and remain a believer while he is stealing. A person, when he is committing theft, Iman leaves his heart. He doesn't have Iman in his heart at that time. Similarly, the Prophet ﷺ said, I swear by him in whose hand is my soul. If Fatima, the daughter of Muhammad ﷺ, if she stole, then I would certainly cut off her hand. Even my own daughter, if she does this, I will not even spare her. Why? Because this is a punishment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's of the hudud of Allah. And that it has to be established on everybody. Secondly, we learn from this ayah that the laws of the Sharia, the hudud, the punishments, the commands that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given, they meet particular objectives. As I had mentioned to you earlier, as you have heard many times, that all of the commands that are in the Sharia, they are to attain specific maqasid. The maqasid of the Sharia, the objectives of the Sharia. And what are they? The safety, the security of other people's property, their life, their aql, their deen, so on and so forth. So, over here, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given this punishment of cutting off the hand for the person who commits theft, what's the reason? What's the maqsad? What's the purpose? What's the objective? Protection of other people's properties. If you are supporting a thief today, tomorrow somebody else is going to come and steal your property. Thirdly, we also learn that another hikmah, another objective behind this punishment is to set this punishment as an example for the people, as a deterrent. Because many people said that, oh, this punishment seems so harsh, it's so barbaric, it's so wahshi. However, there is great wisdom behind it. And what's the wisdom? What's the purpose? That this is an exemplary punishment. It's going to be as a deterrent for the people, that nobody even dares to touch the property of another. Nobody even dares to steal the property of another. And so that everybody can live in peace. The Prophet ﷺ said, your lives and properties are forbidden to one another till you meet your Lord. Your lives and your properties are forbidden to one another until you meet your Lord. Because our deen gives us the right of security of our property. Our deen, what does it give us? The right of security of the property that we have. And if you look at it, we say that this law is very barbaric. However, in the same book from which I had read to you, the book Sharia, Islamic law, it is mentioned that the biblical law for theft is crucifixion. And this is mentioned in the book of Matthew. It is said in the Bible that if thy foot or thy hand offend thee, cut them off and cast them from thee. Meaning if your own people, those who are very close to you, if they offend you in any way, cut them off. Cut them off, meaning finish them. So, the idea behind this punishment that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given is what? It is to provide a deterrent to stop this crime. To provide a deterrent to stop this crime. That the person who has committed this crime does not repeat it again. And other people, they take a lesson and they don't dare commit this crime. We also learn that the punishments in our deen are similar to the crime that has been committed. Meaning, they're of the same nature. So for example, in theft, a person is stealing how? With the use of his hand. Allah says, cut off the hand. So every time he sees his wrist, what does he remember? The crime that he committed. And every time he thinks of committing theft, the hand that he's using, it reminds him that if I use this hand to commit theft, my hand is going to be cut off from me. Similarly, where a person commits murder, what's the punishment? Murder. Where a person commits zina, the entire body is involved, then in that case it's either flogging, where the body is flogged, or it's rajm, where if you think of it, the punishment for zina could be just chop off the head, simple. But it's rajm. Why? Because the entire body experiences the pleasure when it's committing zina. So the entire body experiences the pain when it is killed. So the punishments that are given in our deen, they are of the same nature as the crime that has been committed. We also learn from this ayah about the obligation of carrying out the had punishment. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us the command, فَقْطَعُوا, then cut off. And we also see the relevance of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the end of the ayat. At the end of the ahkam. If you notice, the two names of Allah that are mentioned over here are Aziz and Hakim. They're not Ghafoor and Rahim. What are the names? Aziz and Hakim. That Aziz, what does it demonstrate? His ghalaba. That He is the one who is dominant. It is His choice. It is His command. It's His wish. Whatever He wishes to judge, He has given the judgment. And He has the power, which is why He has given the judgment of cutting off the hand. You see, if an ordinary judge, if they give a very severe punishment, what do people do? They appeal. Or they say that, no, this is not fair. Or some NGO will stand up in order to defend them. Some human rights organization is going to stand up in order to defend them. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Aziz. And when He has given this punishment, when He has made this law, nobody can object and say, what is this? This is the law that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving. Similarly, the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Hakim, what does that show? That yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Aziz, but every command that He has given, there is wisdom behind it. There is wisdom behind the punishment. And therefore this negates the claim of those people who say that the ahkam that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given, they are barbaric or they are wahshi. No, they're not barbaric. But rather there is wisdom behind the commands that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given. There is a very interesting incident that is mentioned in the book Ahkam al-Quran by As-Suyuti, in which he said that once there was a person who was reciting this ayah of the Quran. And there was a Bedouin person who was sitting by him, who was on his side. And that Bedouin man, he was just listening. So he said, I was reciting this ayah, and I ended the ayah with, Wallahu Ghafurur Rahim. He said, Wallahu Ghafurur Rahim instead of Azizun Hakim. He made a mistake. He was reading out of memory, and he made a mistake. So the Bedouin man, he said, whose speech is this? I mean, what are you reading? He said, this is the speech of Allah. I'm reading the Quran. He said, repeat the ayah. So he repeated the ayah, and again he ended with Ghafurur Rahim. He said, this is not the speech of Allah. Definitely this is not the speech of Allah. He's saying, how can you say that? This is the Quran. How can you deny the Quran? So then he said that I realized that no, it wasn't Ghafurur Rahim, it was actually Azizun Hakim. So then when he recited the ayah and he ended with Azizun Hakim, then the Bedouin man, he said, now you have read it correctly. So he asked the Bedouin man, do you know the Quran? He said, no. I haven't memorized the Quran. So he said, then how do you know? He said, because if he has given this punishment, then he has to be Aziz and Hakim. And if he was Ghafur Rahim, over here in this particular context, then he would not have given this punishment. Then he would not have given this punishment. So, because this punishment has been given, what does it show? The izzah of Allah and the hikmah of Allah. So this shows the relevance of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that are mentioned at the end of the ayat, at the end of the ahkam that have been given in the Qur'an. Now there are some points on the law of theft, before we continue, that there are certain conditions which must be there before the thief's hand is cut off. First of all, the person who is committing theft, he must be aqil and baligh. What does it mean by that? He should be sane. He should be sane. He should not be suffering from some mental disability. And secondly, he should be baligh. So for example, if a child who has not reached the age of puberty yet, if he commits theft, like for example, he goes to an uncle's house and he finds his wallet over there and has some shiny nice cards and he just puts it in his pocket and brings it home, are you going to say he's committed theft and you're going to chop off his hand? No. Because he is not baligh yet. He doesn't have that sense. So therefore, you're not going to call it theft. Obviously, you are going to keep a check. You are going to reprimand the child. You are going to teach that child. However, because he has not reached puberty, this is why he is not mukallaf and therefore this punishment is not going to be applied on him. Secondly, the person who has committed the theft, he cannot be the father, the son, the husband, or the wife of the person from whom something was stolen. So basically, cannot be a close relative. So in other words, if a close relative, meaning immediate family members, if they do commit theft of one another's property, then again, the punishment of hadd is not going to be applied. Why? Because these are very close relations and they have rights on one another. Doesn't mean that a person just takes whatever they want from their father's property saying, oh, this is not theft. I want money, so I'll just go take money from my father's wallet. Or I know his code and I will go and I can do his signature and therefore I'll use his card and I'll get the money out because this punishment cannot be applied on me. No. Remember that this punishment is not going to be applied, but depending on the type of theft, if required, ta'zir may be applied. Yes, it doesn't fall under this particular category. However, if a person is committing this kind of a crime, then depending on how serious it is, a punishment may be applied. However, in the case of the parents taking from the children, it is not theft at all. Why? Because anta wa maluka li abika. You and your property belong to who? Your father. Thirdly, the stolen wealth should not belong to the thief in any way whatsoever. The stolen wealth, meaning what he has stolen, it should not belong to the thief in any way whatsoever. As I mentioned to you earlier, that the condition of theft is that it's the property of somebody else. It's not the property of the thief. So for example, if there is a worker, if there is a person who is working somewhere, and the employer is not giving him his wage, he's not giving him his wage. So if he steals his wage, then in that case it's not theft. Why? Because that wage actually belongs to him. Yes, it's not with him right now, it's with the employer. However, it does belong to him. So in that case, again, the punishment will not be applied. Similarly, if a person has deposited a security deposit, rahn, with someone, and if he takes it again, the punishment of theft will not be applied. Similarly, another condition is that what a person is stealing, it should not be something that is haram. So for instance, if he steals alcohol or some drugs or something haram, then in that case again, this particular punishment will not be applied. Another condition is that it must reach the nisab. The Prophet ﷺ said that the hand is not cut off except for a quarter of a dinar or more. And this is a hadith mentioned in Muslim. Similarly, scholars have said that the wealth or the item that the thief steals, it should have been taken from a safe place or from the house or the property of the owner. For example, if a person has his money in his wallet, that's what? Safe. Similarly, if he has his wallet in his house, on the table, what is that? Safe. If he has his chairs in his deck, outside, that is what? Safe. If he has some plants outside, what is that? Safe. Why? Because it is in his property, whether or not he's watching. However, if a person drops something on the street, you understand? If he drops something on the street, or he's walking through the aisle and he drops his wallet over there. Now in that case, he left it somewhere that is not his property, that is not his area. Now if somebody comes and picks it up, and he's looking for the owner, and he sees that somebody else has my wallet, and he says, "You stole my wallet." No, that is not theft. Because you left it in a place that was not your place, where that particular object was not safe. If it's within your house, on your desk, in your bag, in your property, that's fine. But if you leave it somewhere in a public washroom, or you drop it on the street or something, then if somebody picks it up, you're not going to blame them. You're not going to accuse them of theft. Obviously, there are other rules that apply when you find something on the street. It doesn't mean that whatever you find, you can put it in your wallet. You can keep it. But rather, what's the rule? What's the law? That you should announce it for at least a year. You should announce it for at least a year. Okay? That's the law. And if the whole year has passed by and nobody has claimed it, then in that case, you can keep it. Provided that you did announce it for a whole year. And if you don't want to do that, give it to the people who are responsible. So for example, over here, give it at the reception. So if you find a nice watch in the washroom, or nice rings in the washrooms, don't think that, oh, they left it in an insecure place, so therefore I can take it. No, you don't have the right to take it. Then, another important rule is that whatever the thief has taken, whatever the person has taken in theft, yes, the punishment is going to be carried out on him. However, he also has to return the object that he has stolen. He has to return the property that he has stolen. And remember that the hand is going to be cut off till the wrist, and it is preferred that the hand is actually hung from the neck for some time. The hand is hung from the neck for some time. Why? As a deterrent. Somebody was mentioning to me that once they saw somebody with their hand cut off. Have you ever seen somebody with their hand cut off? And she said that just seeing them with their hand cut off, it just terrified her. It scared her so much. Just the thought of committing theft, she could never even think about it. Because when you see somebody on whom this punishment has been carried out, you realize how serious this crime is. And other people also, when they see that, oh, this person, his hand is hanging on his neck for some time, and his hand has been chopped off, don't trust him anymore. This is such a disgrace for a person. Such a humiliation for a person.